What's up, YouTube? My name is Tara. Some people call me Mama Sage. If you are new here, I am in an active 12-step recovery program. I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now. The point of my channel basically is just to educate people about what addiction and alcoholism and recovery and the whole process look like. Because it doesn't matter who you are or where you've been or where your family comes from. Every family has been touched by addiction. I don't know of any family that hasn't had someone who's been addicted or who has been an alcoholic. So, I hope that this gives you some information so that you can help support your loved ones. And I hope that for people who are struggling with recovery or trying to get into recovery, I hope that this is inspiration for you and proof positive that you can do something to change your life, because I live a life beyond my wildest dreams, and it's pretty freaking sweet. For those of you who are returning subscribers, thank you so much for all of your support, coming here and hanging out with me. And I just want to let you guys know that we're starting to do Tara Was a Mess Tuesdays. So this is the first official Tara Was a Mess Tuesday. And I'll be posting a video about my addiction and recovery process, some crazy story every Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that. Now, let's get into today's video. So today I want to talk to you guys about what it's like to be pregnant and homeless. Whenever I was 18 years old, the summer after I graduated from high school, I met this guy, and I wanted out of my parents' house for all the reasons that any person that was my age at the time would want to leave their parents' house. I didn't like the rules. I didn't like having a curfew. I didn't want to be restricted. I had grown up with strict rules for the most part, and I was just tired of it. So I was ready for my big escape, I guess you could say. So I met this guy online a few months before I graduated high school, and whenever I came back from staying with my grandparents and some other family members the summer after I graduated, I was back in my hometown for a couple of months, and I was getting my driver's license. I lived in Columbus, Ohio, so I didn't really need it before I graduated. There were always other people to kind of run me around or whatever. And my parents didn't want me to have that much freedom because I was young and wild. Imagine that. So I have this car. I come back to Columbus. The first weekend that I was home, I think I came home on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon. My great uncle drove with me. He rode with me, and then my grandfather drove up separately, and he was going to take my great uncle back with him. So then Friday, I think I came back on Tuesday. Talked to the guy that would soon become baby daddy Wednesday night, using my dad's cell phone to use his internet, by the way, because I didn't have a cell phone at that point, I don't think. And then I don't even remember Thursday, and then Friday, I told my parents that I was going to go and spend the night at my friend Megan's house, and that we were just going to hang out and have a girls' night. And instead, I met baby daddy at his friend's house, and his friend was hosting a bachelor party for another friend of theirs. So it was like me, a bunch of dudes, and 2 strippers. So I guess, things just kind of snowballed. Everything just snowballed. Baby daddy and I hook up that night, and fast forward 6 months later, this was in July, end of July. I think it was end of July. And beginning of February, it was actually Valentine's Day weekend, I found out that I was 8 weeks pregnant. I was really excited because I had always wanted to be a mom. Really excited. I called him and I told him what was going on, and he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, he was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, right on. Like, we're having a baby. Cool." And he was 6 years older than me. So I was 19 and he was 24, 25. Yeah, 25. So I'm trying to think about like when birthdays were. So I'm staying with a family friend, and we were already homeless at this point. Unbeknownst to me, he had not been paying rent. And I didn't have a job at that time because my job, what he told me I could do, was stay home and be like, stay-at-home housewife type and just cook and clean and that kind of thing. And he would worry about bringing in the income because it was his apartment with his roommate that I had moved into anyway. And he would have had those bills regardless. That was what he said. So things went awry between baby daddy and the roommate. The two of them argued for at least a couple of hours on one particular day. And the roommate was saying, I went to the rental office. I think they got an eviction notice on the door, like a 30-day notice from the apartment complex. And he told baby daddy that he knew that he had not been paying rent and that he was fed up with it, basically, and that he needed to get his stuff packed and move out. Well, me, I'm trying to stick by my man or whatever, and I don't know the roommate any better than I know this guy. I got to tell you, something told me that I should listen to the roommate, but I didn't. I just didn't. And once again, that was like one of those moments in my life that was completely life altering. So they're arguing and yelling and everything. And basically, like, the roommate tells me, he's like, "Look, you're too good for him. Like, you can stay here. You don't have to move out. Like, did you even know that anything was going on?" I was like, "No, I had no idea. Like, he deals with the bills. I had no clue, And of course, baby daddy's like, "Oh, I paid it, and I'm like, whatever. Okay, like, he says that he paid it. Cool. Like, we're supposed to be in a relationship. So there's got to be some level of trust." I was so young and stupid. Oh my gosh, guys. I was so stupid. So we had moved out and we were homeless at this point. And we were supposed to be working. Both of us were supposed to be working, and we were supposed to be trying to get money together so that we could get a different apartment. We didn't really have a plan formulated. Once again, I'm 19 years old. He's 24, 25. We're both young idiots. And so I'm staying with a family friend. I find out that I'm pregnant. I tell him, then I call my mom, and I'm like, "Hey, you're gonna be a grandma." And she's like, Are you kidding?" I think she said something like that. She's like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, "No." So she comes and she picks me up, and she takes me to my parents' home. And I didn't like grow up there. I only lived there for a couple of years. They bought the house like 2 years before I graduated high school. So we get there, and my mom and dad are talking to me, and they're like, "You've got options. You don't have to have this baby. You can give it up for adoption, or you can, go terminate the pregnancy. And, they said, you can still go to college. You can still have a wonderful life. You can change the course of your life at this moment, depending on the decision that you make. And I was like, okay, fine. Like I felt like they kind of browbeat me into like admitting I felt like they kind of browbeat me into agreeing to having the pregnancy terminated. So the next day I go to the clinic with my mom and they do the ultrasound. And whenever the lady was done, I was like, can I see the picture? And she says, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. And I looked at the ultrasound and she looked like a little lima bean and I couldn't do it. She was mine, and it was my job to protect her and to love her. And I knew that there were so many other people, so many other young women that were younger and had no family or family that didn't love them, no support at all. And I knew that they were able to take care of their babies, and if they could do it, I could do it. So I went back to my parents' house, didn't tell my mom what I was thinking, and I called baby daddy and I'm like, dude, like I just had an ultrasound. They want me to have the pregnancy terminated, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. I need you to tell me that you're going to be there. Like, I need you to tell me that we can do this. And he's like, okay, we're going to do it. All right, cool. And then my mom gets on the phone and she's like, Tara, because she knew that it was over at that point, that I wasn't going to have the procedure done. So over the next several months, we were homeless. At that point, I'm like 2 months pregnant. And we're bouncing around, staying on one friend's couch and staying on another friend's couch and staying on the floor of his old room in his dad's house. And he would have to like sneak me in after his dad went to bed, and we would go sleep, and then we would get up like after his dad had already left for work so that people wouldn't know that I was sleeping there. It was just this really bad situation, just really, really bad situation. So his grandma and dad buy us a car, or maybe it was just his dad. I just remember it was this big metal boat of a Buick or something. Maybe it was a Mercury. I really don't remember. So they put it in my name so that we could get tags on the car, because baby daddy wasn't able to have a license at that time. I don't know all the particulars. I didn't really care, but the car's in my name. So we've got this car and we go down and see my aunt and uncle. Well, actually, his grandma put us up in a hotel room. His dad put us up in a hotel room. So we were in a hotel room for about a month at a Howard Johnson. And his grandma had taken us to go get on food stamps, and I had medical coverage. And so, we had that, and we had cash assistance. If I remember correctly, we had a little bit of cash assistance, but it wasn't very much. And so it was enough for gas money, basically. But we had food, and they were providing shelter. So that was a month. And then his grandma took us to, I think it was a Value Inn down in Grove City. And we stayed there for, I want to say it was almost 2 months altogether. And we're supposed to be looking for jobs, and we're not looking for jobs. And he's smoking a bunch of pot. And sitting around playing video games, watching TV. That was what we did. he's like, oh, I'm going to take care of it. Oh, I'm going to go. Or he would be like, oh, I'm going to go to this interview. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, it was just a mess. It was, I really can't explain it as anything other than a mess. We were young and dumb and immature and irresponsible. And I thought that I was going to bring a child into this world, which I did. But, you know, that would have been a good time to pull my head out of my butt. So after a couple of months are over, we'll say by this time it was mid-February, so March, April, May. Yeah, it was about May. And so I think it was like the beginning of May. We went down and we went to my hometown and we stayed with my aunt and uncle for a night, I think, maybe 2 nights, something like that. I think it was just one night. And I saw my aunt and uncle and I saw my 3 little cousins and we hung out and got a roof over our head and a meal in our stomach. And then we left and went to go and stay with his grandfather. So we stayed with his grandfather until, I think it had been a month, 3 weeks to a month. And then his grandfather's gone for the day and his uncle drives up from an hour or 2 away and he's like, hey, you guys need to go because you're draining pops and you know, he can't support you guys. So we packed up and we headed out, I think maybe the next day, and we drove back up to my hometown where we had seen my aunt and uncle, and we stayed with my other uncle and his girlfriend and her kids, a couple of her kids, and grandbaby. And it was crazy. Like, it was like a 2-bedroom house, and my aunt and uncle slept on a mattress in the living room. Then there was one son that lived next door at a grandma's house. There was one son whose room we took over, and he was sleeping on a cot in the laundry room. And then there was another daughter who had her own room with her daughter. And then there was another daughter who lived in an apartment with her baby daddy, and another granddaughter. And my uncle was working on the riverboat, so he wasn't really there very much. So we're staying there, and a couple of weeks into staying there, maybe a month. I don't think it was a month. I think it was a couple of weeks into staying there. There was this crackhead who lived in the alley, like catty-cornered from my uncle and his girlfriend. And she's like standing on the front porch screaming in the middle of the afternoon, just like obviously cracked out of her mind. And so she gets evicted or arrested or something like that. And we see the landlady over there, and she's putting up a sign that the place is for rent. And she tells us that she needs to get the place ready. And we're like, well, will you forego a deposit if we clean up the house and do like the painting and stuff? And she's like, yeah, sure. So all we had to get together was like $450, I think, was the rent at that place. And I want to say the address was like 1701 and a half because it was in the alley. So it was on the back half of a lot that faced the other direction. And this is like a tiny little 5 room house, if you include the bathroom. 2 tiny bedrooms and a small living room and a decent sized kitchen / dining room area. So at this point, it's like beginning of August, I want to say. And maybe it was the beginning of July. I think it was around July. And so this house was like bad. It was bad. There were places where you could see that the floor was separate from the wall. Like the floor didn't reach all the way over to the wall. And there were gaps where like bugs could get in. And the heat could get out. And there was no air conditioning. I think there was a furnace, but it was like a wall furnace, like one of those like propane furnaces that just sits on the wall, and that's supposed to heat the whole house. And we had our furniture because his grandma had put it in storage. So we got a U-Haul, and I mean, so much help from his family. I can't even explain to you how much help his family gave us. And my family was immensely helpful too. My aunt helped me get clothes because we found a job at a call center. He and I are both working at this call center for a couple of weeks, and that's how we came up with the money for the first month's rent. We made it work. We made it work. But that whole pregnancy was extremely stressful, and I was just trying to figure out, you know, how am I going to get through this? And what is this supposed to look like? Yeah. So finally, toward the end of September, my aunt was, unbeknownst to me, my aunt was helping take care of my medical bills because they didn't cover my visits. The insurance that I had did not cover the hospital where I was seeing my OBGYN whenever we moved down to this town. And so she comes over and she and I are talking, and she's like, look, I know what kind of life that you guys are living, and it's got to change. And if it doesn't, there are going to be consequences, and I'm going to have your child taken away from you. And I was so afraid because I knew that I didn't have at that moment what I needed to adequately provide for my child, or certainly not in the way that I wanted to. I mean, there was food, there was shelter, all the utilities were turned on. We had a phone, we had a car, we were able to get to the doctor. But it just wasn't, I wanted to give her so much more. And so once again, like, I'm feeling a lot of pressure, and I leave, and then I go back, and it's like this whole thing. So ultimately I end up living with my parents for about 3 months, and then baby daddy and I get back together. And the rest is another story. Pregnancy whenever you're homeless is really scary. And my baby she's 14 now, but she's always going to be my baby. She was 6 pounds, 5.7 ounces, and I want to say 19 inches long. She was a little peanut. And I think that one of the reasons that her birth weight was so low was because of all of the stress. It's really not good for a growing, it's just really not good for a growing child. It's just really not good for a growing fetus. So if you are homeless and pregnant, there are resources out there. You can contact a women's shelter. You can contact a co-ed homeless shelter. If you struggle with substance abuse, there's a place in Columbus called Amethyst. I know that they take women who have children and who are pregnant. and they help you have, help you find housing. They house you under a contract, and you have to go to meetings and stuff like that. But there are so many different resources in different cities, especially if you're in a city. There are tons of resources for people who are struggling with addiction. And you have to be willing to ask. You have to be willing to ask for help. You can't just expect things to fall in your lap like I did, because I'm just very grateful that things worked out the way that they did. And I never lost custody of either of my children. And that's a blessing. And that was me being shown grace. If you guys have any questions about what it's like to be homeless whenever you're pregnant, or about any resources that you feel like you need, or have questions about anything, please go ahead and comment below in the comment section, and I'll put a couple of resources in the description box. Yeah, I hope that you guys got something out of that, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah.